Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
From her rich and fertile valleys to the shores of her icy seas, from her fields and farms and shellfish beds and her many nurseries, for the finest of her flavor, for the freshest by far, choose the things Alaskans bring to the market where you are. Products that we're proud to call our own, and it's all Alaska grown.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at KAKM Studios for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. On fire danger here, the rain's pretty much nothing now south of the mountains there, but up over the Tanana Valley on up into the upper Yukon areas, high fire danger and some scattered areas of even extreme. Another batch out here to the west, western Koyukuk Valley into the Kobuk Valley there and extending into the central Seward Peninsula. And with the satellite imagery, you can see a low pressure system out here. Center kind of hard to pick out, but you can see the general counterclockwise rotation out in the Gulf of Alaska. That's sending some moisture northward, streaming into the northern southeast coast. Just a few hundredths to a tenth of an inch falling during the day today, but the heavier moisture is still off the coast. And they'll be pushing in this evening. And a lot of clouds here coming back in from the east and northeast, bringing these showers across south central Alaska. Batch pushed through earlier and a few clearing periods in places, but a lot of clouds and showers continuing from the Copper River Basin westward into the Susitna Valley. And a widespread area of thunderstorms going on across the Tanana Valley, the west central interior, on up to the north there to about the edge of the cloud shield there. But the clearing up there allowed temperatures to rise into the lower to mid 80s this afternoon. And then also back here to the west, looking at that batch of clouds that is associated with a weak cold front. That had a narrow band of precipitation with it as it pushed eastward, just a weak trailing edge coming across the Seward Peninsula there with just some scattered areas of moisture, light rain or showers, but nothing too significant. Some high clouds down across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and lower clouds cleared out this afternoon at St. Paul, and maybe about to, if it hasn't already, for St. George Island. But this stream of mid and high level clouds really not having any precipitation with it. Weak trough right through here, bringing some moisture to the central Aleutians, nothing too significant. And then that other front just off the coast there, or off the picture. But here's a weak trough bringing low clouds, fog, drizzle, IFR conditions out to the Shimia area. Not so much so to the central Aleutians, otherwise high pressure out here dominating much of the Bering Sea and the eastern Aleutian areas with light winds and clearing back up through here. There's that frontal system that brought anywhere from a third to a quarter of an inch of rain to the western Arctic coast. That sliding southeastward slowly. And trough here, scattered thunderstorms at least up until 3 o'clock here over the western interior. Much more widespread conditions over the Alaska Range, locally into the Susitna Valley, not too much really south of the mountains. Extending northward all the way across the Brooks Range into the eastern North Slope. And then the moisture coming northward here, again pushing into the southeast coast, mostly over the northern areas. Yakutat picked up about 0.6 of an inch of rain today. Kodiak had around 0.13 at the state airport. That was earlier this morning, just clouds this afternoon. And a few hundreds here over the, from about Sitka on up to Elfin Cove over into the Juneau area with mostly cloudy skies, a little bit more clearing on down to the south there with some locations rising into the lower 70s. On the forecast for tonight, again, looks like some rain this evening, breaking into more of a showery pattern, mostly cloudy skies, drier to the south, and then the main rain area here from Yakutat west to maybe Cordova, and that'll slide into southern and western Prince William Sound. Chance of rain, though, for Valdez. And then thunderstorms gradually diminishing this evening here over the interior, but lingering probably through most of the night here from the western Alaska Range, central interior, on off to the northeast. Pretty good showers after probably 3 a.m. Most of the thunderstorm activity will probably die off, but still a lot of moderate showers left behind here, the Brooks Range on up to the eastern Arctic coast and extending southwestward. Dry over the west with maybe some clearing periods from Kuskokwim Bay and the Delta, St. Lawrence Island, and the western North Slope. Patchy fog along the Arctic coast. Also here right along the coastline, Nunivak Island should be into the fog. Fog persisting here on the Bering Sea side and Bristol Bay side of the peninsula. And then on out to this high there over the eastern Aleutians. Light winds, low clouds and fog probably likely there. And that weak trough still holding together, but very weak, maybe a few showers around the central Aleutians. This next front bringing an increase in the wind and rain into the far western Aleutians. And looking ahead to tomorrow, that pushes eastward, so it becomes more showery back to the west. Rain increases for Adak, possibly Atka throughout the day tomorrow. Nothing heavy, no heavy winds at all coming up with this system, and high pressure holding over the eastern Bering Sea. And that actually extends northward and northeastward to another high center at the surface there over the eastern Arctic coast, about 1,018 millibars. Otherwise, partly to mostly sunny here from the North Slope across the Brooks Range down into the Yukon-Kuskokwim deltas. Low clouds and fog hugging the coastline from Nunivak Island areas, possibly up into western Norton Sound. Could see some of that on the western Arctic coast too. And otherwise, back into the thunderstorms tomorrow, possibly developing over the Talkeetnas, mountains of the Copper River Basin, of course the Auckland, Kilbuck mountain areas, more widespread over the western Alaska Range, right up through the central interior and the Tanana Valley, the White Mountains northward, all the way up to Eagle and beyond there, but probably pushing east of Arctic Village. Otherwise, high pressure at the surface here, keeping the winds light for the southeast coast, but skies will still be mostly cloudy with the risk of a few showers. And this front spreads occasional rain tonight up along the tomorrow, keeps it wet here for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, the southern Kenai Peninsula to a greater extent than what you'll see tonight there. Otherwise, mostly dry for Cook Inlet, maybe some afternoon showers developing on the western Cook Inlet areas, and chance of rain for Kodiak Island as well, but light winds again for the Aleutians. And for the Tuesday outlook, that front just goes to pieces and dissipates. Leftover moisture keeping an occasional rain, light rain, or drizzle for the North Gulf Coast on into western Prince William Sound, portion of the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise, again, mostly cloudy, partly sunny to mostly cloudy skies with developing thunderstorms, western Alaska Range, maybe the Talkeetnas, Copper River Basin, on up into the Tanana Valley areas, and a little to the north. This next system approaching the Arctic coast there, southwest flow should make for a mostly sunny VFR day from the Brooks Range right out into the Arctic Ocean there, the Beaufort Sea. And pretty good conditions here in the west as well. Again, the low clouds and fog possible anywhere along the coastline there from Bristol Bay right up into St. Lawrence Island, maybe the Bering Strait, as well as the Chukchi Sea areas. Look for some scattered showers for Kodiak Island, isolated scattered showers there to the Aleutian Range. No change to the Alaska Peninsula. Light winds, low clouds and fog in areas there, and that weakening front gradually pushing eastward now. Narrow band of light precipitation with it, kind of east of Atka and west of Nikolsky, extending back to the northwest, staying to the east of the Pribilof Islands, and troughing some showers into the far western Aleutians. Temperatures this afternoon along the southeast coast were in the lower 50s to mid 60s, 66 over at Stewart. Shelter Cove was up to 71, otherwise Ketchikan had 61, 57 Klawock, about the same in Sitka, 52 Elfin Cove, Juneau up to 60, Skagway 64. Knocked 10 degrees off that for Yakutat, 57 in Cordova, 55 Whittier, but up to 61 in Valdez. Same thing at Homer, Kodiak 56, 66 in Kenai, 64 at Talkeetna, and north of the mountains there, 70s for the central Tanana Valley, and on up to the north here with the sunshine. A lot of lower 80s, the warm spot in the state today, Chalkyitsik, with 86 degrees this afternoon, into the lower 80s at Fort Yukon. Low 70s there for the Brooks Range, both at Anatuvik and Arctic Village, 74 in Bettles, 78 in Tanana. McGrath pushed up to 74, and Hoosley at 75. North Slope, Umiat Airfield, 69 degrees, 68 over at Deadhorse with 44 at Kaktovik. Otherwise, mid to upper 30s here for the western central, or the western and central coastline, 35 at Barrow. Kivalina up to 55, 65 at Deering, and 51 at Nome, but Elam had 67, and 70 degrees there at Holy Cross, as well as St. Mary's, 66 over at Cape Romanzoff, 48 at Macoriac, mid-40s here, Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. On out to the southwest, Aleutians, 40s to mid-50s, same thing for the Alaska Peninsula and the Pribilofs. Lows for tonight, 50s to lower 60s here, central interior on up to the upper Yukon areas, 40s back to the west into the Bering Sea, 40s, upper 40s to lower 50s, south central Alaska, lower 50s for the Panhandle, lower 30s for the western Arctic coast. And for highs tomorrow, back up to the lower 70s here, right on down, probably including Bethel, and about the same here for the Seward Peninsula. A little cooler now, lose the 80s and just get into the lower to mid 70s there for the upper Yukon Valley. Back to the west, and some 60s showing up for the southeast coast, 50s out west. Flying weather tomorrow, not too bad through the interior, some marginal VFR through this area and also out to the west, and marginal VFR for areas of the southeast coast and North Gulf Coast. And then for tomorrow afternoon, we've got some IFR showing up here on the southern side of the Kenai Peninsula. Marginal VFR, Kodiak Island, right up to hugging the coastline of the Panhandle, maybe on the western Alaska Range, and also out here to the west with IFR out over the far western Aleutians. And for Anatuvik, look for marginal VFR becoming VFR. Same forecast for Adigan, low to start with, becoming VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Rainy, same forecast, as well as windy. Isabel and Mentasta, showers will be of the VFR varieties. And Tanita also looking VFR. Portage, marginal VFR with a risk of IFR in the eastern approach. And Chilkoot and White, marginal. Freezing levels, 68,000 feet over southern Alaska. Cooler up there along the Arctic coast, 10 to 12,000 feet out west. Icing above 12,000 feet over the western Aleutians. Areas of here from the North Gulf Coast on up into the interior. And for the winds aloft, higher pressure over the Bering Sea and over western Canada keeps a trough here through the central interior into the Gulf of Alaska. 9,000 foot winds, southwest 10 to 15, maybe up to 30 knots are in the northeast, more variable and lighter across the Panhandle. And for 3,000 feet, southwesterlies, 25 knots over the western Aleutians, otherwise 10 to 20 here over the interior. And no significant turbulence expected tomorrow. So after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Coming up on Destination Tomorrow, we take a look at NASA's Aviation Safety Program. We'll look back at some highlights of the program and find out what the future holds for aviation. All this and more next on Destination Tomorrow.
We found that changing the seats has made a lot of difference and saved a lot of lives. However, there's more we can do. We need to look at the whole system, like changing the structure so that not only do we have the seat stay attached, but energy is taken out of the system through the structure itself. And they're wearing special restraints to keep them in their seat, and also may even put airbag technology in some of the aircraft. And for large airplanes, we're even looking at changing the design so that it will deliberately break in certain places. Then we can determine where not to put hot things or sharp things or fuel lines and things like that so that people can get out or egress through these openings in the large aircraft.
Lisa, a lot of the things that you described are things that NASA and the industry are doing to make flying safer, but is there anything the general public can do to make flying safer?
Yes, you can check your luggage, all of it if possible, because things in the luggage bins do become flying objects in a crash event. Computers, for instance, are very heavy objects, and if they come flying through the aircraft at landing speeds of 200 knots, then you have an issue because it will definitely injure people. People are not replaceable, things are, so if you can check the luggage, then you're doing a great service to prevent injuries in an accident. We want people to walk away from these survivable events and not have any injuries, and we're working hard to get there.
Did you know that NASA researchers are working with industry to better train pilots and airline personnel? In recent years, NASA researchers have developed textbooks and web-based programs that help increase pilot proficiency in an automated cockpit, while also improving training for maintenance crews and inspectors. These programs are increasing awareness and helping to prevent future accidents from ever occurring. In recent years, NASA researchers have also been focused on reducing fuel flammability and in detecting fires aboard aircraft. In fact, NASA recently won the prestigious R&D 100 award for a fire detection system that has a very low false alarm rate. Dust, dirt, and aerosols frequently fool current fire detection systems, creating about 200 false alarms for every real fire. This is problematic for many different reasons. When a fire alarm goes off, a pilot will immediately initiate emergency landing procedures and will divert the flight to the closest airport. This is not only inconvenient, but is also very expensive, costing the airlines about $50,000 for each false alarm. It's clear to see that this new NASA system will not only save money, but also make flying safer.
NASA has also worked to reduce the chance of an explosion inside an aircraft's fuel tank. When some fuel tanks are not completely full, research has found that wiring inside the tank may cause sparking. This sparking could ignite the oxygen contained in the empty space, causing an explosion. To fix this problem, researchers have designed a fuel system that can replace the oxygen in empty spaces with nitrogen. This works well because nitrogen suppresses fire while oxygen feeds it. Coming up, we'll take a look at a unique facility that is designed to test aircraft icing. But first, did you know that even if the engines on a large commercial aircraft fail, it should be able to glide safely to the ground? Most commercial jet aircraft have approximately a 15-to-1 glide ratio, which means it will glide 15 feet for each foot it descends. At this rate, an airplane flying at 35,000 feet can glide for about 525,000 feet, or 100 miles.
Weather conditions play an important role in all flights. Perhaps one of the most dangerous conditions that can affect aircraft is ice. Fortunately, NASA researchers have been using a unique facility that can simulate the icing effects on aircraft.
Thanks for the ice. You know, there's nothing like a beverage chilled with ice during a long flight. Inside an airplane, ice is something passengers desire. However, outside an airplane, ice can be dangerous, especially if it forms on the wings or engines. I had the opportunity to speak with Judy Foss Van Zanti at the NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. She's researching the effects of icing on aircraft at a unique facility called the Icing Research Tunnel. Researchers at this facility study the formation of ice on the exterior of aircraft. So while flying, the only ice you'll need to worry about is the ice inside your cup.
Well, I'm standing right here in the Icing Research Tunnel. Right here we create on Earth what it's like for an airplane to fly through an icing cloud up there. To do that, we got to make it windy, cold, and wet. Now right now I'm standing in front of the fan. We have the fan to create the wind, and in the test section, which is a much smaller cross-sectional area, we can get winds up to 400 miles per hour. So that's about as fast as a plane might fly through in an icy environment. We create the cold with our heat exchanger, 1,700 ton. It can cool 500 homes. That's how big it is. We can get from 0 Celsius down to about -20, which is where the icing might occur in nature. And we have spray bars. The spray bars is what makes the icing tunnel. We create the rain. We create a mist that the airplane would fly through. Now the thing about the spray bars is the researchers need to control both how much water is in the cloud, the liquid water content we call it, and how big the drop size is. And we have spray bars specially designed to create those conditions. So in our test section, we create what it's like for a plane to fly through an icing cloud.
So why did NASA build an icing research tunnel?
As it turns out, during World War II, the Allies lost more aircraft to icing than enemy fires. They were trying to fly supplies over the Himalayas. So the Air Corps turned to NACA, that's NASA's predecessor, and asked them to build an icing research tunnel so we could understand what was going on and how to fix the problem.
So what do you test in the icing research tunnel, or the IRT?
What we test in the IRT is what makes sense to test. Now if you think about it, if you're in an airplane flying through an icing cloud, what surfaces are most critical to keep ice-free? Well, it's the wings, which provide the lift, get you off the ground, and it's the engine inlet, which provides the forward thrust. So we typically can test just those components, just the wing or the engine inlet.
So what happens when ice forms on an airplane's wing? Well, ice can disrupt the airflow over a wing and will eventually cause the airflow to separate. This separation of airflow creates more drag and less lift. If ice continues to form, the wing will no longer produce the appropriate amount of lift needed to keep the airplane in flight. In some cases, ice creates airflow separation over movable parts, like an aileron. This could create handling or control problems, and the plane could suddenly roll.
As the wing is flying through the air, the ice only accumulates around the leading edge. So that's why ice protection systems only wrap around the front part of the wing. The biggest factor in how the ice grows is temperature. So if it's really cold, the water droplet comes in, hits the front part of the wing, and freezes on impact. And you get this nice pointy rime shape. The more dangerous ice comes during warmer conditions, those closer to freezing, where the water comes in, hits the leading edge, and actually runs back a little bit. If that happens, the next droplet might come in, see that droplet that is frozen, and start to grow. So you might get these ram's horns that grow upstream. Now that significantly disrupts your airflow, and that's way off design, and that's very bad.
Welcome back. South to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots tomorrow along the coast, northwest 10 to 20 on the inside waters. Northern Link Canal south of 25 knots, so small craft advisories there. And for Tuesday, that drops down a little bit to 20 knots, south 15 for Stevens Passage. No change there for Clarence Strait, and again south to southeast, just lighter now, 15 knots to the coast with seas running just 5 feet. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, variable to east at 10 and east to southeast about 10 knots here for Cook Inlet, northeast 10 to 15 down across Shelikof Strait. Same thing here for the Barren Islands, Kodiak Island. Easterlies 15 to 20 for the North Gulf Coast, again just 4 to 5 foot seas. And for Tuesday, south to southeast here for Cook Inlet, all light, no heavy winds at all expected for the next several days. East 10, Prince William Sound, and mostly easterlies for the North Gulf Coast, right on through the Barren Islands, Kodiak Island. And for Bristol Bay tomorrow, southwest at about 15, light variable winds here for the Alaska Peninsula, and north 15 from Castle Cape on up to Sitkinak. For Tuesday, those become northeast a little bit there, and then from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, southerlies 10 knots right across the peninsula, turning southwest into Bristol Bay. For the Fox Islands tomorrow, light variable winds at about 10 knots, becoming southeast to south 20 here for the central Aleutians, maybe some 25 knot southerlies there for the far western area. And then for Tuesday, southwest 15 knots, western Aleutians, west 15, pretty light for Adak and Atka, just 4 to 5 foot seas, turning south 15 to 20 knots there for the eastern Aleutians. And then for the southwest coast here, south of Nunivak Island, more southwesterly, westerly, north of the island, northwest for St. Lawrence Island, northern Bering Sea, southwest at about 15, west 15 for the Pribilofs. And then on Tuesday, southeast 15, there's that weakening front approaches, but stays back to the west, up to the north there. And then southerlies 15, St. Lawrence Island. Pretty light winds here for the southwest coast. And for the Arctic coast, 15 to 20 knots southerlies from Wales on up to Cape Beaufort. Southeast 15, or southwest 15 for the west side. Central coast should have the strongest winds at about 20 knots out of the west, and then those westerlies at about 15, all the way east to Demarcation Point. Pick the winds up though for Tuesday, looking small craft and brisk wind advisories here for the central and western coast. South 25 to 30 knots, turn southwest 30, 25 knots back down to Cape Thompson to Wales south at 20. And then for tonight again, diminishing thunderstorms later on tonight, but probably holding through this area with some action going probably through most of the night. Dry in the west, rain up to the North Gulf Coast, Yakutat back to say Cordova, into Prince William Sound, chance of rain for Valdez, scattered showers over the Panhandle, mostly cloudy skies. And then for Monday, this front increases the rain here for the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. Thunderstorms back in the picture again, western Alaska range from the southwest here right up to the northeast interior. Copper River Basin, Talkeetna Mountains, mostly cloudy, isolated showers for the Panhandle, mostly cloudy for the eastern Bering Sea. Some rain moves into the central Aleutians. And then for Tuesday, this system approaching the western central Arctic coast, southwest flow ahead of that should clear it out pretty good. VFR, mostly sunny skies here, central eastern north slope to the Arctic coast. Still kind of showery with thunderstorms over the interior, right on down to the north.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
When shopping for your family's meals, do you know where you can find Alaska-grown products? Everywhere. They're available at your local grocery stores and farmers markets across the state. Alaska-grown products are fresher and more nutritious, and buying local helps grow our economy. So just look for the Alaska-grown label when you shop, or ask your grocer where the Alaska-grown products are. Remember, Alaska-grown. It's closer, fresher, better.
And it's all Alaska grown.